welcome to Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show. This time we're looking at the latest V8 hell-raising pickups from America, the Ram TRX and the new Ford F150 Raptor R.
We also have Audi's new Q8 E-TRON and the 2023 Toyota Corolla.
Plus an affordable new MPV from Dacia and a car we thought we'd never see, the new Corvette Hybrid.
That's all coming up. First though, the news.
Aston Martin has begun preparing its Warwickshire factory for its next generation of cars, including the new Vanquish. With a total overhaul of its current range of sports cars and Grand Tourers expected, the historic British brand is creating hundreds of new jobs at its main factory in Gaydon, with its other factory in South Wales continuing to build its SUV. With new models like the Vanquish and the Valkyrie, Aston is moving away from its traditional front-engined Grand Tourers to more driver-focused supercars. What do you do if you need a brand new 7-seater but only have £17,145 to spend? Well, you only have one option, and here it is, the new Dacia Jogger. With the cost of living going up and up, and recession looming over us, the Jogger, Britain's cheapest people carrier, could well be the perfect car for big families who don't want to fork out for unnecessary frills. The Jogger is, along with the rest of Dacia's lineup, a bit of a throwback, putting value for money first with things like luxury, refinement and safety less of a priority. Indeed, the Jogger comes with a measly 1-star Euro NCAP score. Don't let that worry you too much though. Today's crash test scores are increasingly based on the amount of active safety tech, of which there isn't any here. It does come complete with crumple zones, plenty of airbags and ISOFIX mounting points though. Look past the NCAP score and there's a lot to like about the Jogger, starting with the styling. Now, no Dacia is exactly a work of art, but we think the Jogger is one of the best looking MPVs in years. It has a real SUV feel about it, with its black plastic body cladding, chunky roof rails and high stance. Entry-level models are sparsely equipped with steel wheels and no infotainment, but splash out a bit and alloy wheels, metallic paint and sat-nav are available. The Dacia's key selling point though is its practicality. The rear two rows both fold up and down with plenty of passenger space throughout. Even the rearmost side windows pop open too, great for people with dogs. That said, with all rows of seats in place, the boot space is limited. Fold the third row down though and you get a useful 565 litres. Powering the Jogger is a 1-litre 3-cylinder petrol motor, putting out just 108 brake horsepower. That's not a lot, but the car weighs in at just 1200 kilos, so performance is adequate, hitting 62 miles an hour from rest in a steady 11.2 seconds. For the real speed freaks among you though, there's a more powerful 138 horsepower hybrid model, which storms the 0-62 sprint in just 10.1 seconds. Obviously, the Dacia Jogger won't be winning many races, nor turning many heads. But this level of space and practicality is hard to come by for less than 30 grand these days, never mind less than 20. In a world of look-at-me SUVs, the back-to-basics Jogger is a refreshing reminder that sometimes all you need is just some car.
Here in Europe, the cheap saloon car is all but extinct. Even slightly bigger cars like the Volkswagen Passat and Peugeot 508 are now rather rare sights on the roads, with the majority of four-door cars being built by the likes of BMW and Mercedes. Instead, the hatchback is still the most popular type of car, continuing to fend off the SUV offensive. Over in the States though, the saloon, or rather sedan, is still popular. Cars like this, the 2023 Toyota Corolla. And while that name may be familiar, this is not the same family hatchback that we get in Europe. Instead, the liftback has been replaced by a traditional boot lid. Recently redesigned following on from the new hatchback version, the Corolla has inherited some tech from the bigger Prius. As a result, the Corolla is finally offered with a hybrid powertrain, essential for keeping up with its rivals. Entry-level cars use a 1.8-litre four-cylinder and a rather noisy CVT gearbox for a total output of 139 horsepower. But while it won't win many drag races, the Corolla still offers a huge amount of bang for your buck, as what it lacks in performance, it more than makes up for in equipment. There are loads of different trim levels to choose from, but even the most basic cars get a mobile hotspot touchscreen infotainment and Apple CarPlay, although Android Auto is conspicuously absent. It does get Amazon Alexa though, helping you to keep your eyes on the road and not on the screen. Top trim levels get various other luxuries like leather and fancy audio systems, but all cars come with numerous bits of safety tech like lane keep assist and autonomous emergency braking.
But despite being one of the world's best-selling cars for years now, it doesn't have the market to itself. Far from it. The latest Hyundai Elantra is another US market sedan with a fresh new look. The old model had little in the way of curb appeal, but the new car looks much more interesting. With its angular design and on-trend big grille, it certainly stands out against the more subdued Toyota. In fact, from any angle, it looks like a much more premium product, despite costing about the same as the Corolla with a base price of a little over $20,000. Like the Toyota, the Elantra is now available as a hybrid, with a 43 horsepower electric motor paired up to a 1.6 litre engine. The total output is identical to the Toyota's at 139 horsepower. The interior though is a little more upmarket, with optional digital driver's displays and a minimalist look. However, there's a third option for those after a compact hybrid sedan, the Honda Civic. Another car that's usually found as a hatchback in Europe, the Civic is most commonly seen as a four-door rather than a five in America. Like the Toyota and Hyundai, it's available with a range of engines and trim levels, but the hybrid option once again makes use of a CVT gearbox, but it's a more refined option than those found in its rivals. Opt for the 2-litre version, and you can spec a superb 6-speed manual too, making the Civic the best choice for keen drivers with excellent handling throughout the range.
There are countless other choices in this class, but these three represent the best blend of practicality, style and value, but choosing between them is tricky. For us though, it's the Hyundai that just edges it thanks to its striking looks and modern interior. It's just as well equipped as the Toyota and just a bit more up to date than the Honda Civic. And while there's still only a very small market for cars like this in Europe, it's the Elantra that we'd most like to see make its way over here.
After the break, Chevrolet's surprise new Corvette E-Ray.
Still to come, a pair of 700 horsepower pickups, but first...
The latest Chevrolet Corvette caused quite a stir when it was launched a couple of years ago. For the first time, the engine was behind the seats, giving it supercar looks to match its newfound supercar performance, thanks to its remarkable V8 engine. Finally, a true cut-price alternative to a Ferrari, the Corvette wasn't done yet, with the Z06 model building further on its performance with even more power and a track-tuned chassis. And now, another model is joining the Corvette family, the all-new E-Ray, the first ever hybrid Corvette. Don't be too quick to poo-poo it though, as some sort of eco-minded marketing gimmick. This is a proper car, and what's more, the fastest accelerating Corvette ever. The standard car's LT2 V8 remains in place, this time hooked up to an electric motor on the front axle, for a combined 646 bhp. Now, with all-wheel drive, the E-Ray can do 0 to 60 in a mind-boggling 2.5 seconds. The electric motor is powered by a 1.9 kWh battery, which is topped up by regenerative energy as you drive. Electric-only driving is possible, although only for short distances in so-called stealth mode. Naturally, the electric gubbins has added a bit of weight, as has the E-Ray's 9cm wider body shell, but an additional 110 kilos for all that extra power does seem worth it. Distinguishing the E-Ray from other Corvettes is a new Z06 style front bumper, a restyled rear end to fit the wider body shell, and a selection of bespoke colours. Prices in the US are starting at $104,000, with the first customer deliveries expected by the end of the year.
When Audi's first standalone EV, the E-TRON, launched in 2018, it was a pioneer of a premium electric SUV class that has since become rather more crowded. And now in 2023, with BMW and Mercedes muscling in on the E-TRON's territory, Audi has given it a new look and a new name. Since E-TRON became the moniker for all of Audi's EV efforts, it makes sense that the big SUV is now known as the Q8 E-TRON, sitting above the Q4 E-TRON further down the lineup. As well as its new name and badges, the Q8 E-TRON gets a well-executed styling refresh with an updated front grille, a full-width front light bar, and a selection of new colours to choose from. The interior tweaks are similarly subtle, but that's no bad thing. The cabin has always been a highlight of the E-TRON, and apart from a few new trim adjustments and new materials, it remains unchanged. That means quality throughout, with leather and metal everywhere you look, while tech fans are sure to be satisfied with the digital cockpit that still looks good 5 years since we first saw it. The infotainment system consists of 2 separate screens. The top one houses your audio, drive modes, guidance and other media controls, while the lower one handles things like climate control and heated seats. They're not quite as easy to use as buttons, but the haptic feedback does somewhat make up for it. The biggest change for the new 2023 model, though, is the battery. The 114 kWh power pack puts out 20% more energy than the old car, resulting in an improved range of 343 miles. Performance figures, though, remain pretty much the same. 402 brake horsepower propels the Q8 from 0 to 62 in 5.6 seconds. For those looking for a bit more performance, there's an SQ8 version with almost 500 horsepower that shaves a second off that time.
However, while the E-TRON almost had things its own way when it was first launched, it now has this to contend with: the Genesis GV60. Based on the same platform as the Kia EV6, the GV60 is the first full EV from Genesis. The bewinged Genesis badge may lack the heritage of its German rivals, but its fancy cabin and low price tag could well persuade buyers to consider something from Korea. The styling feels that bit fresher than the Audis, while the interior is a real high point. It won't be for everyone with its silver trim and crystal ball drive selector, but it all feels very expensive and beautifully put together. It's light and airy, with the flat floor adding to the spacious feel. The digital instrument cluster and infotainment systems sit proudly on top of the dash, while the chunky steering wheel is festooned with buttons and switches, and the climate functions are also operated via physical switches, a big plus point, meaning you don't have to cycle through menus on a screen. Prices start at £54,000, about 10 grand less than the Audi. And while it isn't quite as spacious, it will still manage 312 miles on a charge. And if straight-line speed is more important than long-distance hypermiling, top-spec cars can hit 62 miles per hour from rest in 4 seconds flat.
Is the Audi's new name too little, too late then? The world of EVs is evolving at a rapid rate, with each new model outdoing the last. The Q8 e-tron though is still a very impressive car, but if you want a posh electric SUV, just remember to shop around.
The Ford F150 Raptor is an outrageous vehicle. With its big V6, specialist off-road suspension and wide stance, it's a truck like almost nothing else on or off the road. Now though, Ford has gone even further with this, the totally wild Raptor R. A direct response to a certain new release from Ram, the Raptor R turns things up to 11. Ford describes it as the fastest, most powerful, most extreme high-performance off-road desert Raptor yet. So how have they done it? Well, for starters, gone is the 3.5 litre V6. In its place, it's a magnificent supercharged 5.2 litre V8, the same one you get in the Shelby GT500. It produces a whopping 700 horsepower and 640 pounds-feet of torque. Every inch of the engine has been breathed on by Ford performance engineers, with everything from the air filter to the oil pan receiving some attention. The new exhaust has a built-in valve system that opens and closes depending on your drive mode, allowing for a relatively quiet startup, ensuring your neighbours don't get too angry with you. Head out into the dunes though, and you can really let the monster breathe in Baja mode. The gearbox has been beefed up and recalibrated to handle the punishment of bumps and jumps, while the chassis is now even more impressive, with 24-inch springs and Fox shocks that have been specially tuned for the R. It gets a new, more durable front axle, which not only handles the increased torque, but can stand up to even tougher punishment than the regular Raptors. The wheels are shod in 37-inch beadlock BF Goodrich all-terrain tyres, or as Ford calls them, toothy land eaters, very much in keeping with the truck's prehistoric branding. In fact, just about everything has been strengthened, lightened, reinforced or retuned to make this better than the regular Raptor. With an extra 250 horsepower versus the standard car, all the performance figures are predictably impressive, but it's the 0 to 60 figure that really stands out. This enormous hunk of Detroit steel hits the mark in under 4 seconds, beating the truck's only real rival, the formidable Ram 1500 TRX.
And it's the Ram that inspired Ford to build the R in the first place. After all, this enormous TRX is the truck that beat the standard Raptor. Under the bonnet sits the king of all V8s, the soon-to-be retired Hellcat. More commonly found in Dodge's Charger and Challenger muscle cars, it matches the Ford with 700 horsepower, narrowly beaten by the Raptor's staggering acceleration. In fact, on paper, these trucks seem perfectly matched, apart from in one key area: the cost. While the Ford tips the price list scales at $109,000, the Ram seems to be a bit of a bargain at $84,000. And it still gets all the off-road cred. The 35-inch tyres may add 8 inches to the truck's overall width, but they're built for the trails. Like the Raptor, it also has a beefed-up chassis to cope with some serious off-road punishment as you take on some of Baja's biggest dunes. The suspension has been revised both at the front and at the back with a specially developed set of Bilstein remote reservoir dampers. That fabulous engine has also been modified to adapt it to off-road driving. The airbox has been moved to the top of the engine to get cleaner air during high-speed desert driving, while the oil pan has been toughened up and the alternator moved higher up to increase the wading depth to 32 inches. Like the Ford, the Ram has a host of different driving modes to suit any environment you might find yourself in. The Baja mode has been specifically calibrated to work in Mexico's sandy peninsula, famous for its off-road racing and car-destroying terrain.
There really is very little with which to separate these two super trucks. They're both totally ridiculous and ultimately pointless. They're antisocial, abrasive and terribly uncouth. But in a world of electric crossovers and downsized eco-boxes, we're secretly very glad that cars like this are still being built.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we check out the latest hybrid SUV from Lexus, the all-new RX.